We are in an interesting time in India where you can buy a G-Wagen in all three powertrain options. You have the petrol, which is the G63 AMG. It's a bit like a Godzilla, wants to trample everything in its path. Comes with that AMG fury, but that also generates petrol bills that can trigger inflation. Then there is the electric, the G580, a bit like Greta. It's got a clean conscience, it's virtuous, and, well, also silent. Not that silent, but you get the drift. And then there is this, the diesel, the new G450d. It's a bit like that middle sibling that your parents secretly like more than the elder or the younger siblings. Now you might say, hey, that analogy is absolutely wrong, especially in our country where hum do hamara ek is still something that people aspire about. But come on, someone who is buying a G-Wagen is not debating a single car garage or a single child policy. Anyway, let's now talk about this wild child. The G450 then is wise, powerful, and still fully capable of unleashing mayhem when provoked. It doesn't need to peacock at every corner, but when the moment comes, it will swat a mountain aside and move on like it never happened. Now let's rewind a little bit. I called the G580 electric the all-rounder in the G-Wagen family. Big torque of an electric, so instantaneous, guilt-free emissions, decent amount of range, and despite all of that, despite the weight, despite the batteries, great off-roading capabilities as well, including the conversation starter, the G-Turn. Perfect blend, right? Except no one bought it. Hardly any sales. So yeah, the Indian market, it does work in some funny ways, but it's a phenomenon we've seen across the globe. So from where I'm sitting, the G Electric is more like a limited edition science experiment, not a market success. Maybe it was the price, maybe it was the lack of drama, maybe India's G-Wagen faithfuls just aren't ready to talk softly when they can laugh loudly. Either way, the G580's fate is sealed in my books as a limited run experiment. Which brings us to the G450d. One of the most powerful Mercedes-Benz to ever roll out in a diesel avatar. It's as if they said, fine, you want the old ways? Here, but refined and very powerful. There's still nothing quite like a G-Class on the road. It doesn't just resist aerodynamics, it antagonizes them. But this one does it a little more gracefully. A reshaped A-pillar and a blink and miss little spoiler over the windshield help it cut a little more efficiently through the air. Better aerodynamics. And the added insulation also gives it lower NVH levels. This AMG Line variant gets subtly meaner bumpers, blacked out trim, and 20-inch wheels that look more form over function than a full-send AMG. The color on our test car is delightfully subdued, discreet enough for embassy runs, bold enough for late-night dhaba detours. But should you crave for more visual drama, Mercedes-Benz will gladly indulge. And you know the beauty of this? The G-Wagen is offering one of the widest manufacturer personalization options. So you want something different on the exterior, something different on the interior, you can do that. If you think this is a bit too subdued, you want a crazy color like the fluorescent green or those yellows, you can have that too. But I think if you're going to be driving a luxury bunker like this, you might want to settle for a sunset orange, an oceanic blue. Subtle colors like those I think will look a lot classier. And please do not do those dual tone Maybach aping color options on a G-Wagen. That looks a bit distasteful on this. You want solid colors. These look nice. The shape still screams opulence with undertones of menace. It still has the road presence of a tank and the cabin insulation of a Swiss bank vault. Because this is a Mercedes-Benz, you get soft carpeting, leather inserts, even in places that don't really matter much. And no G-Wagen review can be complete without that sound. All the doors still close with the subtlety of a rifle bolt. And that tailgate mounted spare wheel, still here, still round, and still scaring motorists behind you and making them honk like scared chicken every time that reverse lamp comes on. The cabin is peak G, plush, screen heavy, and unashamedly luxurious. Twin 12.3-inch displays, MBUX with all its familiar brilliance, Burmester audio, more ambient lighting than an Oktoberfest. It's all here. It's even got wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay. What it doesn't get is too much clutter of switchgear. You get the quintessential switches like your AC controls and the 3 switches for the 3 lockable differentials, which you will seldom use, of course. There's not too much gimmickry either. You don't get a heads-up display because you simply don't need it in this car. That is at least what I think. Even the sunroof is nice and tiny. A full sunroof probably would have been nicer, but in case this off-roader topples over, that could have been a cause of concern, which is why you don't get it. But overall, this is one of the best cabins that you get into. It feels purposeful without losing the premium touch you expect from the 3-pointed star. And that's a rare combo to have in today's world, where everything is a design and screen overdose. That said, the rear seat might spark debate at your next family dinner. Ingress and egress into this cabin is quite a bit of a climb, as if you are going up and down an apartment. You do get a bit of recline, but you don't get the controls on the door like you would in any other Mercedes-Benz car. This one is a little difficult to reach, and the legroom for the kind of size that this car is doesn't feel as spacious. In fact, my in-laws, veterans for judging luxury based on space, under-thigh support, legroom, etc., say that while they're old school, they would rather buy the GLS. And I get the point. The G-Wagon, despite its size, doesn't have a cabin that roomy. In fact, the rear seats feel like they're designed more for bracing for impact when on off-road trails like these than lounging around in a business class environment. That's the difference. Under the massive bonnet of this G-Wagon sits one of the most powerful diesel engines by Mercedes-Benz. This is a 3-liter inline-6 longitudinally mounted, and it puts out over 367 PS of power and 750 Newton meters of torque. Especially in terrain like this, you will absolutely appreciate it. You'll appreciate the beauty of that torque and how beautifully it is spread across that rev range. There's the ISD2, there's the 48-volt electronics. It gives you the additional 20 PS of boost when you need it, but it's still good old-fashioned torque that's doing most of the heavy lifting, and that's the beauty of it. If you love torque, if you love diesel engines for their torque, you are going to absolutely love this. It's shockingly quiet for a diesel and startlingly quick for a car this square. The 9-speed auto doesn't hesitate, and despite its 2.5-ton heft, the G450d feels far from lazy. It moves like it's on a mission. It's urgent, it's confident. In fact, let me show you. Where the G580 felt tech first and the G63 felt borderline theatrical, this diesel feels just right. Natural, almost nostalgic. It's not trying to impress you, it just does. And despite the 20-inch rims, it actually rides better than its AMG counterpart. There's less vertical hop, less butt-clenching moments of when you will just hit a pothole and probably break those wheels. It's got less rebound over expansion joints. It just feels more sophisticated and in a good way. I don't want to take anything away from the G63. The intent of the car is different. Despite the boxy shape, it still wants to attack bends, and that suspension does that really well. But the kind of suppleness you want from a G-Wagon, this is the one that does it. The suspension isn't magic carpet smooth, but for a ladder frame brute, it's shockingly civil. And even if it's not an AMG, its handling is not too bad. I mean, it's not unnerving around the bends. Of course, it's not going to be as sharp. It's certainly not going to be as sharp as AMG sports cars or even some of the sportier SUVs from the Mercedes-Benz lineup. It's still a G after all, but Even for a ladder frame chassis like this, even for a ladder frame SUV, a 2.5-ton brick like this, it changes directions quite well. Be it tarmac, be it off the road, quickly avoiding certain things like potholes or any hurdles on the road. Not like you have to, but in case you want to avoid all of them, you can do that. The direction changes are pretty quick. And then you have this engine to give it that kind of go. So when you're really in the mood to have some fun, and if the roads allow it, the G-Wagen will oblige. Of course, the steering is still vague by Mercedes-Benz standards, but that's par for the course with the G. It's not pretending to be anything it's not. At slow speeds, feels hilariously big. In parking spaces, tight spaces, the turning radius, it's really big, but so is the car. And when it's on the move, in traffic, when people see it approaching, there is that sense of scare on their face. And that definitely massages your ego. This may be the calmest of the G-Wagons, but don't mistake that to be softness. It's still quintessentially G. It still has all the hardware that you expect to go off the road in a G-Wagon. 3 lockable differentials, low range, tough as nails build quality, great underpinnings. It's all there. And you also have this off-road cockpit which will tell you the angle of the car, the angle of the front wheels, all of that. So in case you're going off-roading alone, all of this comes in handy. And when you want to navigate some tougher terrain, there's also the option of the transparent bonnet. As you can see, we aren't rock crawling or dune bashing, but over loose gravel, sushy trails, even steep climbs, the G450d barely breaks a sweat. Throttle response is excellent, traction is unshakable, and the whole thing feels like it's bored of the terrain and looking for something tougher. And it's reassuring to know that the G-Wagon hasn't lost any of its DNA even after all these years, even though most of its customers today are taking the car for a brunch and not to the Badlands. So, who is it for? If you consider the G63 to be for Instagram gods, the G580 to be for the silent saints, then the 450d is for people to get it. People who are looking at more practicality, who are looking at a more sensible buy, a more sensible option. Because this is the one that makes sense to your head, your heart, and in relative terms, to your wallet as well. It doesn't shout, it doesn't pretend, it just delivers torque, comfort, presence, and authenticity in equal measure. This is the G-Class distilled, refined, and dare I say, perfected for everyday use, even if it won't help you make friends with your rear seat passengers. This here is the most honest interpretation of a G-Wagon. It's not trying to overachieve, and yet it ends up impressing the most. It's not chasing Nürburgring lap times or chasing carbon neutrality hashtags. And still, it does everything that a G-Wagon is supposed to do, only better. And while I once crowned the G580 as the best all-rounder of the lot, reality and the sales charts had other plans. Turns out, silence isn't exactly golden if your customers want thunder. Yes, Greta was right. Godzilla made headlines. But this middle child, this diesel, this is the one that understands the family business. No noise, no drama, just performance with a purpose. That is quintessential G.